When you're trying to rebuild a relationship, whether it's trying to rebuild a relationship or it's going through a tough patch, a lot of people can find their partner suddenly becomes quite angry, and it can feel like it's really out of the blue. And this can feel really confusing, especially if you're trying to repair a relationship with an ex-partner. This can feel really jarring. So in today's video, I want to break down why your partner isn't angry with you, what your partner is actually feeling, and why it's so important to understand the difference and how it's going to help to repair the relationship. So if you are trying to repair a relationship with partner, ex-partner, whatever you want to refer to them as, you probably hit a specific, maybe confusing wall. You're making changes, you are changing the way you handle things, you want to make sure that the relationship heads in the right direction, you're showing up differently and you're trying to communicate. But oftentimes people find that they are met with a level of anger, of skepticism, or of coldness that feels really disproportionate to what is happening right now. And especially in comparison to the good times of the relationship, this can feel really jarring. A lot of guys that I've worked with have explained that it feels like almost that their partner has been rooting for them to fail. So I've spoken a little bit about this on the channel. I'll link to a deeper dive video on what we call expectancy bias. I'll link to it up above and in the description down below. But this expectancy bias is ultimately a bias that we all have as humans, where when we expect something to happen, we increase the likelihood of it happening. We can sometimes act in ways that almost push it to happen. So for example, if your partner has seen some changes, but her expectation is that you won't change long term and that your changes aren't real, this can lead to feelings of suspicion, of skepticism. And these feelings can manifest in ways that feel like anger. So this can feel like stubbornness. You might feel, why can't they see like I'm trying? Why are they so angry? The truth is that your partner is not just angry. Anger is rarely the whole story. Oftentimes anger, like all emotions, anger is a tool that we all use unconsciously to try to survive the risks of life. So I want to talk a little bit more about what is actually happening beneath the surface and why understanding the anger iceberg is key to breaking through. So the first thing I want to point out is anger is a bodyguard. When we talk about emotions, there are primary emotions and secondary emotions. A lot of people classify anger as a secondary emotion, but it's usually reflective of something that is happening deeper underneath the surface. So when we are hurt, our nervous system classifies vulnerability as dangerous. So to protect us from that, it pushes secondary emotions to the surface. So there's primary emotions, which are the full story. These are the raw, the tender feelings that your partner is actually experiencing. These are painful and make them feel weak and vulnerable. This is heartbreak, fear of betrayal, of shame, of loneliness, all of these things. But then there are secondary emotions. These are like a shield. Because feeling heartbreak can feel paralyzing, not just your partner, everyone's brain can flip a switch to something more active, which can be anger. So anger is a tool. It mobilizes energy and it makes us feel powerful rather than vulnerable. But more importantly, anger creates distance. So I want to be clear that this is not just a your partner thing. This is not just a lot of people are like, they're doing that because they have trauma. They're doing that because they have ADHD. They're doing that because they're bipolar. Whatever it is, this is a human thing. Everyone has some element or ability to do this in different ways, in many different aspects of our life. If you've ever felt anger, you have done this in some way. So I want to be clear that this is a human thing that we can do. It's a tool that we learn to use, and people use it in different ways. So one thing that makes you angry will not necessarily make somebody else angry, depending on what you are worried about, what you are scared of, and those vulnerabilities underneath it. So I'm saying this to say that if your partner yells at you, or your ex-partner pushes you away in what feels like an angry way, if they are cold, I want you to understand how, as a tool, it's actually really useful. It's really smart. If you get angry at someone, it means that it disrupts whatever they're doing and it pushes them away. It stops people from asking for intimacy or vulnerability. So anger does a really good job. It keeps the perceived threat of you and the pain that you may cause away from the vulnerability, the fear of being hurt again, ultimately. So the reality is that when your partner or ex-partner lashes out about you, the relationship, past hurts, what you're doing now, or even a mistake from 3 years ago, whatever it is, they are not actually fighting about the past. They're using anger as a tool to essentially say, I'm worried that if I trust you, that you're going to crush me again, that you're going to let me down, that you are not going to be the person that you say you are, that you're not going to follow through on promises. So this is all understanding the fear that hides underneath anger and how useful anger is as a tool. Now I want to break down a little bit about expectancy bias. So this is the wall. So when I mentioned earlier about expectancy bias, your partner or ex-partner will have an expectancy bias towards reconciliation. Essentially, your partner, their brain has collected data on you and the dynamic for the duration of the relationship. If that data overall, if you think of a data trend line, if that data overall points to you are unreliable or you are not consistent, you can't always be trusted, your partner's brain is going to create a predictive model. And I want you to think of this from an outside-in perspective, rather than taking it personally, looking at, again, how useful it is as a tool. So to keep your partner safe, their brain is now scanning for evidence that confirms its prediction that you're going to hurt them again. So expectancy bias is looking at the data and making a prediction. Doesn't mean that prediction is 100% true, but our brains need to make decisions based on data. So even if you are changing how you are approaching the relationship right now, your partner isn't going to be looking at all the things that you're doing right, the things that you're doing effectively. They're still going to be scanning for the dangerous data, the scratch in the armor that is going to prove that you are as dangerous as you feel right now, emotionally speaking. The truth is that hope is dangerous. If your partner hopes that you have changed and you haven't, the disappointment is going to feel even worse, because the kind of idea is, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. When you've been let down before, you don't want to jump back in, right? So if your partner or ex-partner expects you to fail, they protect themselves from the drop. So when you are trying to reconcile and you're trying to create the emotional safety that we speak about a lot on this channel, you're not just trying to create emotional safety for the current mood, you're also trying to create emotional safety for the survival instinct based on all of the evidence that your partner has gathered data on. That's why 1 week, 2 weeks of change, even a couple of months of change, is not going to feel like enough evidence when there's so much evidence to look back on. If you think about it this way, if you think of maybe a manager or a boss that you've worked for and they've made you a lot of promises, implied promises, but never quite followed through on them, you may trust them for a little while, but eventually you're going to say, I think I'm being foolish here. I think I am letting them take me for a ride. That's the same situation here. So your partner is going to be hyper vigilant for any sign that the old you is back, because spotting it early prevents them from pain later on. And this isn't just about anger. There are other shields that we use as humans. I'm not going to dig too deep into it. Maybe I'll do a video on it in the future. So let me know in the comments if you want to see that. This is what I work on with members, is not just about some system to get your ex-partner back or anything like that. This is about being able to understand what your partner may be feeling, being able to deeply understand what they're experiencing right now. Doing that is going to help you to become a much stronger leader within the relationship. Knowing and understanding deeply how your partner feels may feel useless right now, but if you want to cultivate a very strong relationship and have your partner trust you to be the one that's able to lead it in the right direction, being able to understand the data from an objective point of view and be able to cultivate a system that works with all of that data is important for building trust. It's very hard to trust someone who can't even hear the data, who can't even decipher that data. if that makes sense. And this, like I said, is what I work on with all of my members, is being able to show up and be someone who is able to collect and process that data in order to cultivate a relationship that works in a very powerful way. If you want to join us and start that journey, then join my relationship bootcamp, where you'll learn the same fundamental steps that all of my members use to start turning their relationships around and rebuilding them from the ground up. I'll drop a link down below if you want to grab your spot. So like I said, I'm not going to dive too much into this, but there are other shields that we use as humans in order to create a bit of distance from us and what we see as danger. So just as anger is a tool, there are other emotional tools that we can use to protect ourselves from being hurt. And maybe you've experienced these as well. Take the time to reflect on this and see if you've used these tools in the past, because recognizing these can help you stop taking them personally and start seeing underneath why we use these tools as human beings. So things like apathy. This is an anesthetic, if you think about it. So for example, if you're seeing someone who acts like they don't care, they say whatever, don't care, doesn't matter, nothing to do with me. This is, again, like a fear of disappointment. Think about the times when you've pretended that you don't care. Oftentimes it's because you really care, but you care so much that it's scary. So it's almost like numbing yourself. This apathy is forcing yourself to not feel the care that you feel, if that makes sense. But there's other things that we use as human beings. Cynicism, sarcasm. This is like a deflector. So making jokes about your efforts to change, to be someone new, rolling your eyes when you're trying to cultivate the relationship, things like that. Again, it's creating a blocker to intimacy, right? Just not taking it seriously and brushing it off. I want you to understand how useful this is. I know it's difficult to not take this personally, but think about it from an objective point of view, how useful it is as a tool. Not a conscious one necessarily. I'm not saying your partner is doing this consciously, but think about how useful it is as a tool. It's a very clever tool, very smart tool that our brains have done in order to protect us from hurt. And there's lots of other tools. This is why understanding emotions and how they work is so important to not just repairing a relationship, but building any type of relationship. Building this emotional intelligence helps you to be able to show up in a very powerful way in order to guide the relationship into the right place. Mastering your emotions is, I would say, one of the number one skills in not just repairing a relationship, but leading a relationship into the right direction for both of you. I've actually done a deeper dive on why mastering your emotions is going to be so important for mastering the relationship. So I'll leave that up above and in the description down below. But being able to master your emotions, understand your emotions, will help you to be able to understand and support your partner when they're experiencing their emotions. This is what provides extremely high value to relationships. So I won't dig into it here. I'll leave you with that deeper dive, and I'll see you over there.